Tomlin is not excited to get going. You could not be more wrong. Take a listen.
Man, I love what I do. I love the misery, what people might perceive to be misery. Nobody loves camp like the way we love camp. You know what I mean? We pour all of our energy into the experience of the men that we work with that play the game. You got to find a way to take all the things that you learn, but make sure that you don't lose your voice in it. I think that's probably the most significant lesson that I learned from being around Coach Dungy, to be quite honest with you. I was around him, and it didn't take very long before I realized that, man, I can't do it like him. You know what I mean? Yeah, I can glean information from him. I can gain perspective from him, but I better not try to do it like him.
Well, doing it his own way has worked out pretty well for Mike Tomlin so far. 14 seasons as an NFL head coach and not a single one with a losing record. That is tied with Marty Schottenheimer for the longest such streak by a head coach to start his career in the history of the NFL. And thankfully, we are joined now by Ryan Clark, former Pittsburgh Steeler who knows Mike Tomlin well from having played for him. Ryan showing up just in time to talk about his former coach. You played for him for 9 years. What comes to mind when you hear him talk about camp and misery?
Actual misery. And that's the cool part. I think me and Coach Tomlin were probably two of the only people in the world that ever shared in the fact that we loved training camp. I would go to training camp without a TV, and he would love to see me when I showed up because we both felt the same way about the process. This is the process of getting your team hardened. This is the process of putting your team in a place to where they share the same exact mindset as you do. And guys, trust me, when you went away to camp, it was actually fun. I mean, there was no kids there. You didn't have to worry about significant others. All you could do and all you had to do was focus on football. And I believe Mike Tomlin loves that. He relishes in that. And he knows that's important for his team this year. This could be the first year of a losing season. This could be the most adversity the most doubt this team has faced entering a season since Coach Tomlin took over the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so I'm excited to see the way he gets this team ready and the way he leans on the Minkah Fitzpatricks, the TJ Watts, the Ben Roethlisbergers, the Juju Smith-Schusters to make sure this team is prepared for what's at hand in 2021 because there is no 500. Unless they're going to go 8-1, they're going to have a losing season or a winning season. And I know Coach Tomlin plans to be on the winning side of that.
Well, Ryan, you talk about his approach. I think that's why so much of this talk right now about, the Steelers kind of being done and having to move on from Ben, I think it's just a little premature. I mean, you talk about, we had the graphic up about consecutive winning seasons. Remember, he did that 1 year, or without a losing record, he did that 1 year with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges as his quarterback. He's dealt with all kinds of adversity. And I think that even while we all are going to acknowledge that the division has certainly gotten more competitive, recently, look, I'm going to be late to the party that says Pittsburgh's done. When you think about the job Kevin Colbert's done in the front office in terms of how they've drafted and how they've signed, veteran free agents, the job that Mike Tomlin has done as a head coach, the job that Ben Roethlisberger did throwing 33 touchdowns and 10 picks coming off of a big elbow surgery. I'm going to believe in that team. And so, I think this idea that they're done or not going to be competitive is premature. And I just want to add one other thing. I think last year when the Titans had a COVID outbreak and it changed Pittsburgh's bye week, I think that had a lot to do with the collapse at the end of the season. So I think there are a number of factors why they didn't finish as well as they started.
And I think we've got an issue here of Ben Roethlisberger where he looks like somebody who has rededicated himself. There were pictures of him today on social media where he looked thin and trim and ready for football. He knows that he's near the end of his career. Look, if we go back to his draft class, Eli Manning, retired. Phillip Rivers, retired. Ben Roethlisberger is the last man standing from that draft class. So his time is essentially on the clock. Take a look at how thin and buffed Ben Roethlisberger looks there. He almost looks like Ryan Clark. Very impressive with the Steelers reporting to camp today that Ben Roethlisberger looks the way he does. Hey, Ryan, look, you've played with Ben, right? He was your teammate, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, have you seen him look that thin reporting to camp before?
Absolutely not. This is Miami of Ohio size Ben Roethlisberger. And I think when you look at a guy like Tom Brady, who to me looks better than he did when he was drafted, Ben Roethlisberger has stolen a page out of his book. He understands you need to be healthy, not only externally, but internally. And he seems to be moving that way. And if Ben can have a year where not just the numbers look like they looked last year, but we can see some of the production downfield to the Claypools and the Smith-Schusters and the Johnsons, then this team can compete, especially if Najee Harris does what the Steelers and Kevin Colbert, the GM, believes he'll do with the run game.
I'm not sure when Ben Roethlisberger took to TB12, but he certainly looks like he did something during the offseason to change his diet and come in leaner, fitter, and trimmer. So I guess Ben's on the TB12 plan right now.
Well, we'll see about that, of course. The Steelers did make a move in the last few days. They signed pass rusher Melvin Ingram, free agent who had still been out there, a veteran. RC, what do you think that does for them?
You know, this is a very Steeler-like move. Get a guy who's used to playing the position he'll play in Pittsburgh, a dude who's a veteran leader who wants to win, who wants to be in a place that prioritizes winning games and winning championships. And I think Melvin Ingram is going to add to what this defense is because he doesn't have to be the dude. TJ Watt is the guy on the other side. He'll be singled up, much like he was with Joey Bosa opposite him in Los Angeles. And I think he can be someone that adds to this team and allows them to get a little bit over the hump defensively when you lose a guy like Bud Dupree to the Tennessee Titans.
Obviously, a lot of pressure on that Steelers defense if the offense has as many question marks as some seem to think it does. You know, you guys were talking a little while ago about being healthy on the inside. This is a picture of Derek Watt reporting to Steelers camp today with his own homemade meal. And Aditi Kinkhabwala, reporter with NFL Network, said this reminded her of when Ryan Clark used to pack himself special meals in mason jars. So, Ryan Clark, what was your go-to mason jar meal in training camp?
Well, if it was a mason jar, it was actually salad, Dan. And I used to bring protein shakes, coconut water, and all those things to practice. And I would sit on top of my cooler at practice and wait until practice was over so I could hydrate and drink those things. I told you, Dan, I was a freak about training camp. I enjoyed it. I loved every bit of it. And it was all a process to me. And I see the Watt brothers understand this as well.
Yeah, mason jars or Tupperware, whatever it takes to get you your meal there for training camp. Team that the Steelers are playing in the Hall of Fame game is the Dallas Cowboys. We mentioned them earlier. They reported for camp today out in Oxnard, California. Where the Cowboys go, Ed Werder goes. So let's get Ed back in here for a little bit more from Cowboys camp. Ed, what are you hearing about Dak Prescott's availability for training camp coming off that ankle surgery?
Well, you know, Dan, Dak Prescott is healthy physically and financially. Head coach Mike McCarthy said the quarterback, limited to 5 games because of a fractured right leg and dislocated ankle in 2020, is expected to be a full participant here at training camp. It's the first serious injury of Prescott's career, but it didn't prevent him from signing a $160 million contract in the offseason. Throughout this offseason, Prescott seemed comfortable moving, throwing on the run, extending plays, but that was without defensive linemen on the field. The Cowboys wanted to prevent players from accidentally falling into him. That restriction will soon be eliminated, as McCarthy says he wants Prescott to return to playing football. McCarthy says Prescott will participate fully in team drills here, which begin tomorrow.
Much more from Ed as Cowboys camp rolls on, and much more on NFL Live today.